Hello and welcome to the Peak Performance Podcast, the show that helps ambitious professionals reach their peak performance through cutting-edge fitness insights from two of the world's best fitness consultants. My co-hosts Andrew Menashian and Mick Toke. Today's episode is going to be a response to what James Cameron said about testosterone recently. James Cameron, the director of Terminator, has been saying that testosterone is toxic and that it's a toxin that needs to be removed from the male system. Now, I know that that sounds outrageous, so I want to start this episode off with a screen share showing you guys that he really did say this, because it is hard to believe that anybody could possibly say this, but here it is. True story. And here we see Elon Musk responding with testosterone rocks, not gonna lie. So this is real, we're not making it up, as outrageous as it sounds. But besides the outrage, we also want to cover the science, the fitness science of why testosterone rocks, as Elon Musk puts it, why males cannot even function without testosterone, how to optimize your testosterone levels, and much more. So guys, let's start off with reactions. As two guys who have coached hundreds and thousands of men through their physical and cognitive performance, what is your initial reaction to this comment? Andrew, you want to kick off?
It's a very, very, very interesting, that's for sure. I have no idea what's going through his head when he said that. As far as I know, he's had a lot of marriages. I think he's had like 4 or 5 marriages. Maybe this attitude has something towards the reason why he's not doing too well in those marriages in terms of the consistency. It's definitely a very strange look on things, that's for sure. Yeah, what can you say? Testosterone being toxic is very bizarre indeed. And like we were talking about before this, one of the movie that basically made him famous, Terminator, was arguably one of the most testosterone fueled movies out there. And
Wow.
Now he's sort of changed his tune. So yeah, definitely very interesting. And as the person that said this, the critical drinker, it's not filling them with optimism for Avatar 2. Yeah, it's making me think, what kind of pussy shit is Avatar 2 going to be, right? So yeah, that's my initial thoughts.
Yeah, look, it's quite clearly that there's something going on, man. Sudden agenda. I mean, high celebrities insert agenda into content that the masses are going to consume. There you go. It's just. And like I said before, guys, it's like there's a war on men. There's a war on masculinity. For some reason, they don't want men thinking for themselves. They don't want men abiding. They don't want men complying. So it's just, yeah, I truly believe there's a war on masculinity. You're coming from a mile away. As you know, testosterone, mentally, it makes you sharper. Mentally, you just like you can think for yourself, and I don't want you thinking for yourself. So that's just, man. I just reckon it's just a crock of shit, man. I'd say he's been paid to actually say that.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, my opinion.
Would not be surprised.
Or I have another theory. Could it be that, obviously he's clearly aging. He's maybe in his 70s now, and we know that testosterone drops with old age. So could it be that his testosterone levels have dropped so low that it's making him crazy?
It's a possibility.
Possibility,
It's definitely
yeah.
a possibility.
Don't forget, what other movie he made, Andrew? Do you remember the Game Changers, that vegan movie? He produced that movie.
Ah, did he? Okay.
See that?
He's an agent of the Matrix. That's it. Enough said.
Well, thank you very much. Pretty much, I should have said that in my comment, but yeah, he's definitely an agenda, man. Like he's promoting veganism, man. Like I said, set the agenda and put it into content that the masses consume. And mate, a lot of people fell for that vegan bullshit, man. A lot of people fell for it.
Yeah.
I had mates of mine going on vegan diets, man. I go, mate, I'll guarantee you, I'll give you 6 months, you'll be back to eating meat. And guess what? I was right.
Vegan's a crock of shit. Absolute crock of shit.
Stop it. Like, good for maybe a short period of time, maybe 1 or 2 weeks, just to get a bit of a cleanse happening, just to maybe alkaline it a little bit. But long term, you're headed for a disaster, man. So
not made to eat that way. I'll argue that to the death all day, every day.
Yeah,
not made to eat that way. Even if you have a logical analysis of how things would have worked 1,000 years ago with, lack of technology, no fridges, no pantry. I had a fucking spear and my boys. Man, you really think we're going to dig up fucking vegetables, or do you think we're going to go get that deer that's galloping over there? You know what I mean? It's like there's deers running around everywhere and all of these other animals, or am I going to go searching the world for vegetables to dig up? What's the logical conclusion there? You know what I mean?
I'm going for that deer, man. That's fucking dripping blood.
Yeah.
I think James Cameron would go for the vegetables, but
let him go. More meat for us.
I was kind of half joking with my theory, because we do know that testosterone does have great impacts on cognitive performance, even things such as focus and memory and attention. So in terms of breaking down why testosterone rocks, why males cannot function without testosterone, why don't we start off with that? So what are your thoughts, guys, on testosterone's benefits to cognitive performance and memory? Have you guys worked with clients who, let's say, were found to have low T, and as a result, brain fog and other cognitive issues? They fix their T, and then all of a sudden they feel sharper, quicker, better memory, etc. Have you guys worked with any clients like that?
Yeah,
a few. I mean, look, it's a hormone produced, in the male testicles, and it's primarily responsible for, development of male sexual characteristics. Now, like body hair, facial hair, and gives you that deeper voice. It's also important for maintaining muscle mass and bone density. And for, like you mentioned before, Marcus, it's also good for regulating your mood and sex drive, of course. So, but yeah, look, I remember having a client who was depressed. He didn't know why he was depressed. And at the time, I actually recommended him to go on some TRT, some testosterone replacement therapy. I mean, obviously, we looked out for some lifestyle issues like, his sleep, his diet, his lifestyle, how much sun he gets in the day, and etc. And once we fixed all that, he didn't have to go on the TRT. Everything just changed for him. So it's just, I also recommended some natural supplements too. So there's definitely a correlation between, depression and low testosterone. I wouldn't say I'm an expert on the matter, but there's definitely a correlation there.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's because there's close relationship with testosterone and dopamine as well. So there's so many different issues that could be causing it. And it's very common in this day and age. Like, we've literally got a pandemic of low testosterone. Like, that's, if you want to say we got a pandemic, that's the pandemic, not the supposed other one that was happening for a year or two. But yeah, it's interesting for sure, because brain fog is very common. In general, it's just very common. People find it hard to concentrate. Everyone's got ADHD. And like we were kind of alluding to on the previous podcast, if you abuse your dopamine system, you find it hard to concentrate. You get a short attention span. So, by effect of messing up with your dopamine receptors, this is another way that we could also have low testosterone. So, on top of everything else, destroying gut health and all that and everything we do. But yeah, you have high testosterone, you're definitely going to concentrate better. You're definitely going to be more focused. And you kind of think about that from, like an evolutionary standpoint. If you're the big, bad, strong motherfucker, well, how'd you get there? You think you got there by lack of focus? You know what I mean? What, you're going to be in a fight and not pay attention? Like, it doesn't make sense. So yeah, it's definitely correlated. So yeah, the benefits to testosterone are just absolutely ridiculous. Like, if everyone was walking around with low testosterone, we would have a failing society.
There'd be no society at all.
Yeah, there'd be nothing. Like, everyone would be fucking sitting around, not doing shit, no motivation, no drive, no focus. Like, well, how the fuck is shit supposed to get done? So, it's almost like, I don't know, James Cameron's agenda, like I said, Agent of the Matrix, slavery, peasants, blah, blah, blah. It's like he wants everyone else to be low testosterone, but he can stay high test so he can still function good. Sounds like a reasonable agenda based on, what we're talking about. But anyway.
Yeah. Funny you mentioned what you said earlier, Andrew, about us men going hunting. Like, I firmly believe your mindset is no doubt about going to affect your testosterone.
Yeah,
So as men,
100%.
okay, as men, like it's having that mindset of, hey, fucking, there's a problem, I'm gonna fucking solve it. There's a solution to every problem. Hey, it's just the masculine in us wants to solve every problem. And I personally think your mindset is really gonna dictate your T levels, man. It's like, okay, yeah, there's a problem, I'm gonna get shit done. As for women, give them a hug, everything's okay. So it's just the way I see it. It's definitely your mindset's going to dictate your T levels. Just the way you attack things, the way you approach things, like having like a mindset, like a very frame. It's like, oh, why did this happen to me? Okay. It's like, okay, what's this trying to teach me? Is sort of that mindset of a high T person is. That's what the way I see it. It definitely is a correlation there when you mentioned the cognitive performance before, Marcus.
Well, you know this. You guys obviously know that the testosterone levels have been dropping year over year, and it's dropping to a very dangerous level. And we also know that because you guys just made me think. We know that when you talked about dopamine, Andrew, and ADHD and motivation, we know also that the use of ADHD drugs like Ritalin has gone up year over year as well. I wonder if those two things are correlated.
Sure. Yeah. Well, if you look at pharmaceuticals in general, like I'm not a massive fan of pharmaceuticals. You shouldn't need pharmaceuticals for health. There's a time and place for everything. You know, if you had a car accident, okay, we may need to take this drug in operation. Fair enough, right? But you shouldn't have to rely on drugs to be healthy and to have energy and blah, blah, blah. So, and the crazy thing about pretty much every pharmaceutical drug out there is like, oh, we've solved this issue, but you get this issue. You know what I mean? So it's like you get rid of one and then they give you another couple issues from whatever drug it is. But yeah, the Ritalin and all of that, it's like a Band-Aid. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, okay, you can focus now, but as soon as you go off it, you're fucked. Right? So it's just a Band-Aid. You're just removing the symptoms. You should be addressing, you know, why do you have this issue in the first place? Let's address that. And yeah, with the low testosterone, so if you look at the numbers, so I was looking at a study recently. In the last 20 years, total testosterone has reduced 20% on average. Free testosterone has reduced 45% on average. That's insane, right? And then there was even another study I was looking at how they were looking at men's grip force, so like force production through grip strength, and that's dropped significantly too. It's like your average man is weaker, has low testosterone. Sperm counts are down pretty significantly as well. So overall, it's not looking good at all. Now, I'll try and approach this in the easiest to understand way for most people as possible. So you use logic, right? You're like, okay, well, what's been on the uprise as testosterone's been on the downrise? And so a lot of people would say, oh, you know, correlation doesn't equal causation, blah, blah, blah. But we can't sort of deny over the past 20 years, there's been a lot more, you know, artificial this, pesticides that, GMO this, and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, you don't have to be a genius to put two and two together. People can argue conspiracy all they want. But if we want to go back even further, let's go back even further. Let's go back to the time, you know, in the 30s, 1930s. Men's testosterone levels were 3 times higher on average than what they are now. And in the 1930s, there was a lot less artificial shit, right? So it was, you know, what pesticides, you know, everything was fucking organic back then, or at least significantly more. There was much less packaged food, blah, blah, blah. Coincidentally, all of that stuff was on the uprise. Testosterone's been on the downrise ever since. And we can correlate it, you know, good testosterone is going to come from good gut health. You know, good gut health is the foundation of all health. So if your gut's unhealthy, then everything's unhealthy. And all of these things that have been significantly increased in production, they all significantly mess up your gut, right? Your pesticides, artificial sweeteners, preservatives, packaged foods, you know, all of that's going to mess up your gut as well. You know, your herbicides, fluoride, you know, pesticides, all of that stuff that just wreaks havoc on your gut. So you don't have to be a genius to put it all together. You just got to take a step back, use a bit of logic, and try and be non-biased, and, you know, don't just believe everything you're told. And when you can do all that, you're like, oh, everything's clear as day. I see totally why, you know, what's happening to men's testosterone levels. So yeah, that's my thoughts on why it's happened. But we got more, there's more things as well. Like, it's not just, I'm just purely talking about the gut health side of things. Like, you know, a couple other things, you got your seed oils, you got soy, your xenoestrogens, drugs and alcohol, the porn, like we said, porn's going to affect it through, you know, the dopamine level as well. Then, you know, we've got another pandemic of obesity. You know, high estrogen levels are linked to, you know, sorry, high fat levels are linked to high estrogen levels, which is counterproductive to high testosterone. So yeah, it's I want everyone to think about it this way. I want you boys to think about it this way as well. Let's just imagine I was a big evil empire and I had unlimited resources. And let's just say I wanted to lower the entire population's testosterone. How would I do it? I would do everything that's fucking happening in reality right now. I'd make GMOs normal. I'd try and destroy people's gut health. I'd try and make them eat soy. I'd try and make them fat. I'd try and make them to eat peasant food like your fucking vegetables and wheat and grains and all that sort of shit. So if I wanted to make that happen, theoretically, that's what I would do. And coincidentally, all that shit's really happening. So let's hope people can put two and two together and not want to live in fairyland. That's all I can say about that.
Well, it's
when you mentioned, sorry, Marcus, keep going.
I was saying, well, things aren't looking too good for the next generation. So maybe for some of the younger guys watching, maybe later on in this episode, we can give them some tips on how to protect themselves from an environment that is perhaps might be intentionally designed to lower their T levels. Mick, you were about to say something?
Well, as when Andrew was mentioning before about the spears and he said, I mean, what's happening now is actually designed to give us slow T. So I was going to say, just you forgot to mention Uber Eats, man. See, when you mentioned our ancestors, what were they doing? They moved a lot. They're getting natural sunlight. They slept well. They were having lots of sex. It was like kill or be killed. So for them to go and get their food, like you mentioned, Andrew, they have to get their spears out. Going up against fucking proper monsters. Today, one click of a finger, you got fucking Uber Eats at your door. Ben & Jerry's ice cream at your convenience. So you don't have to get up and get your food anymore.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. It's you can look at the psychology of what you're talking about as well. Like, you know, what were we designed for? And all you have to do there, again, you just use logic. You're like, all right, what would a person, you know, 5,000 years ago had to have done if there was, you know, no technology, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's like, well, you got to wake up, go look for the animal, get your boys, hunt the animal down, kill the animal, you know, then eat the animal, right? So there's sort of like, we can relate this back to dopamine. If I hunted that animal, well, then that's success. I just succeeded. So that's a release of dopamine. So we could argue, you know, what's supposed to happen in terms of natural, like, all right, so I'm supposed to feel success. I worked hard. I got that success. I got the dopamine hit. Then the reward is eating. So it's almost like you're setting up a good habit, right? So it should be success, then eat, if we look at it from that standpoint. But a lot of people these days, this is why I'm not a fan of breakfast in the traditional sense. It's like, wake up, breakfast. You don't fucking deserve that breakfast. What'd you do? Where's that, you know, win, then eat. So like a lot of people miss out on that. So obviously I don't expect people to go out there and fucking go to the desert or whatever they can find and start hunting animals. But a modern way that we could get around that is like, okay, wake up, get ready, win, do something, win. Like, you know, I did some work. I just got a little victory at work. Cool. Now eat. You know what I mean? So like, that's the way we can get around things as well. And like, you know, it is what it is. We can't go back to, you know, looking for lions on the street and shit with the boys, but you know, it's a good little substitute that we can do in the meantime. Wake up, get a few wins, then eat. This is why I'm a big fan of intermittent fasting. And like the way that I get around it, I just train fasted. I wake up, I get ready, I train, smash my training. That's my win. Then I eat. So that's how I get around it. So yeah, it's definitely interesting, Mick. That's for sure.
So man, you couldn't have said it any better, man. Like, forget that dopamine. Okay, yeah, I caught that lion or caught whatever. Now I get to eat.
Exactly.
Couldn't have said it better. Absolutely.
Exactly.
You touched on an interesting point with the Uber Eats culture and the Uber Eats psychology of not, and overall what you're talking about, Andrew, of not having to work for your sustenance. And, you know, you guys earlier mentioned that the mental state of a man can affect his testosterone levels, his behaviors, his habits. So not only are there substances in the environment that are lowering T, And that's maybe the total T that you talked about earlier, Andrew, that dropped by 20%. But the culture is set up in a way where men behave in a way that perhaps lowers their free testosterone. And maybe could that be why, I wonder if that could be why free testosterone was down by 45%, whereas total is down by 20%.
So there could be a few different reasons on that, you know, like, again, we start looking at gut health as well, like how bioavailable is everything, you know, could SHBG, because SHBG is like another hormone that's very closely related to how free your testosterone is. So it could be argued that could be affected. It could also be argued the mental side, because again, we go back to that example, you know, if I was this big evil empire and I wanted to attack men's testosterone and I had unlimited resources, well, obviously, you know, if I had an agenda, I'm an evil person, I didn't give a fuck, well, I'm not just going to attack it through one avenue, right? Okay, let's mess up their gut health. Let's mess up their minds. Let's just, you know, whatever I can to you know, make men have low testosterone. I'm going to attack all angles, right? So yeah, it's a very interesting thing. Like, you know, we could argue the way in the Western world how, you know, the male to female rights are set up in a way where, you know, the man's rubbish is nothing, blah blah blah. You know, we could argue divorce laws where the woman gets more. Even when she get, like, the amount of famous people is like, oh, this guy's got 300 million. Oh, you get divorced, she takes 150. Like, what the fuck is that? He had that shit when he got there. Why does she deserve half? She doesn't deserve that much. That's fucking bullshit. Fair enough, take care of her, take care of the kids, but come on, 150 million just for getting in a relationship? Like, that's not fair. Surely that's going to affect men's testosterone as well. I was actually looking at a few studies as well where single men have more testosterone than men in relationships as well. So like, there's that factor too. And then we can relate that back to, you know, evolutionary thing. Probably not evolutionary, but, you know, back in the day, the men went to war, they're with their boys, they're in their, you know, their crew, there's high testosterone, everyone's got healthy competition. Whereas if you're sitting around all day with your wife and kid, it's not really a conducive environment to high testosterone. Like, it's nice and chill, you know, it's fun. You haven't, you know, chilling, everything's comfortable. It's not really an environment for high testosterone. Now, obviously, you know, society is the way it is. So I'm not saying, you know, don't spend time with your wife or kid, but, you know, all right, I'm sure you guys have heard this before. You're hanging out with your boys, everything's good relationship with the boys. All of a sudden you got that one friend that gets a girl and you never fucking see him again. we've all seen that, right? He gets his pussy whipped or whatever.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like, it's not an environment for high testosterone. So, you know, if you set things up right, you still spend time with your boys, so you're still around the boys, you're still around that energy, and, you know, it's more conducive to high testosterone. But there's many different things. So like, even if you look at sporting, they've done a few. I remember there was a rugby study, and I think there was a few other studies, like a wrestling study as well, where they test the men's testosterone before and after a match, and they try and see, you know, how's the testosterone after victory and, you know, after failure. And there's basically a direct correlation. So the actual act itself of competition raises testosterone, but then you've also got, you know, the act of victory, the act of losing. So losing lowers testosterone, winning raises testosterone. So we can kind of relate that back to things that people can do in their everyday lives. I would say keep a record of your progress. It doesn't matter how small the progress is, but if you see that consistent win, that's you know, it's a positive feedback loop, right? So for example, let's say it's a win in terms of your gym progress. It could be work progress, could be anything, right? So this is why tracking your progress is so important. So if I'm in the gym, I just start out, I'm benching 40 kilos or whatever. If I'm not paying attention, it's like, oh, I don't really notice the progress, whatever. But if I'm like, okay, I'm benching 40. Oh man, I'm benching 45 this week. Oh shit, next week it's 50. Like, you're seeing that progress. So like, now I'm seeing, it's like, man, I'm winning. You know, subconsciously, it's like that win. I won. I gained 5 kilos of muscle, blah, blah, blah. So if you see that win over time, it's a positive feedback loop that's going to help with your dopamine. It's going to help with your testosterone as well. So that's something that people can do to, you know, reinforce healthy testosterone levels. So yeah, it's definitely the mental state, because again, this is how we think about it, right? So, you know, being in a, you know, being confident, blah, blah, blah. So all of those things are definitely going to help the mental state with, you know, and help your testosterone levels as well.
I want to add something, Andrew, when you said about they were testing T levels before and after competition. I don't know if you've noticed because you've been away, but in Australia now, winners get the trophies, losers get the trophies.
Yeah.
So they're fucking taking away that competitive edge from the kids now. They're starting them young, mate. So it's just funny how that works.
Yeah.
You know, we can just go on and on about it, man. But let's just stay on track.
It teaches them the wrong thing too. Like if
See what I'm
everyone gets a
saying?
reward, like where's that teaching kids the drive to want to win? You know what I mean? It's
Man,
not just in competition. Like if they don't have the drive to win from there, so how are you gonna have the drive to win at life?
absolutely, man. I was growing up, I was a fucking sore loser. I couldn't stand losing. I used to cry when I used to lose. Now they'll cry, give them a trophy. Yeah, it'll be okay. You know, just starting them young. I feel sorry for the younger generation. I actually genuinely do. If you got kids now, you got a lot of work on your hands, man.
Yeah.
And that's really why we're doing this response, is because I think most people understand that that what James Cameron has said here is completely asinine, but there may be some folks out there who are influenced by Hollywood and influenced by celebrities. We want to make sure that you guys understand that this is total nonsense. And that's why we're doing this, because we care about the next generation. It's not looking good for them. So, you know, we're going to do what we can to help them stay physically healthy, because that's the foundation for all aspects of their lives. But you guys brought up sports. Like, would professional sports even exist without testosterone? No, right?
No, absolutely not. Society wouldn't flourish.
You wouldn't want to win. There'd be no reason to do anything. You had no testosterone. It's just fucking sit back. Like that's You have no aggression, nothing.
You've got no drive. You don't want to win. You're just going to sit back and be a little better male.
Yeah. Sure.
And it wouldn't be fun to watch, because you wouldn't have guys like LeBron James dunking from their free throw line, or guys like Cristiano Ronaldo doing spin kicks.
Yeah, there'd be no drive. There'd be no drive for nothing. Like it's like, oh, like how do you say? Like you were saying when you were young, Mick. It's like, all right, you were upset that you lost, and that gave you the drive. Your testosterone gave you the drive. It's like, no, I want to win. I'm going to push. I'm gonna, you know, keep striving forward. That wouldn't exist, and we'd have. Yeah, you wouldn't have super athletes because they wouldn't have the motivation to train, or the drive to train, I should say. Like, I'm not that into basketball. I don't know if it's LeBron or the other dude, but yeah, like how they're saying they train 8 hours a day or something like that. They're doing, you know, the amount of hours that adds up. Well, he wouldn't be that good if he wasn't putting in that work, and he wouldn't put in that work if he didn't have testosterone. So yeah, it's definitely needed. That's for sure. We would not have a good society. Like, where would be all the amazing artwork, you know, from history, and, you know, all the crazy buildings and the architecture and all of these amazing things that we have, and the good inventions and all of this? Where would be the drive for all of these things? We'd be a bunch of fucking, you know, couch potatoes sitting on the side of it. Like, we wouldn't do shit. We need testosterone. It would be a horrible society without testosterone. But on the other side of things, if for some reason we wanted a bunch of slaves, low testosterone would be a very good thing. So something to think about.
There was fucking shitload of them for the past couple of years, wasn't there?
Sure. Stay at home. Okay, sir. Fuck off.
Oh, man.
Yeah, like if we look at, so we kind of went over it already, but like you were saying, we need people to kind of wake up to why we need testosterone. So let's go over a few of the pros and cons, you know, pros of high test and cons of low test. Like there's so many, like, how do we say, like high testosterone is going to fight depression. It can help decrease body fat, can help, you know, increase muscle mass. It strengthens your bones, your heart, increase the libido, decrease the chance of Alzheimer's, improve your cognitive ability, increase your competitiveness, helps you with women, increases, you know, tolerance for risk taking, higher energy and mood. And like, I'm scratching the surface. I'm sure there's more that I can't think of. And then if we look at the downsides, it's ridiculous. Like, or downsides of low test, I should say. So more increased risk of depression, fatigue, bad sperm count, low libido, you know, poor cognitive ability. You can't grow muscle properly. You're going to gain more fat. You're actually more at risk for aggression when you have low testosterone. That's an interesting one, because a lot of people, that's a misconception, right? And I'll explain that one. So a lot of people think it's high testosterone that gives you aggression. So if you look at, I can't remember, it was chimps or gorillas or one of those studies anyway. And they did the study and they found that it was the high testosterone chimp that was the calmest. And it was the low testosterone chimps that had the most aggression. And now, if you think about this properly, like you think about it with logic, so what's basically happening is, if I'm the big bad alpha, I'm chill. I got nothing to prove. I got all the bitches. Why am I going to be aggressive for? You know what I mean? So you think about it from that standpoint. It's the low test ones that are like, they're aggressive because they want to climb up their ladder on the totem pole, right? And it's the same thing in real life. But the misconception, I should say with humans, but the misconception comes from steroid abuse. So a lot of people think, oh, roid rage, it's high testosterone, blah, blah, blah. That's the reason that they're so aggressive. That's not actually 100% correct. So what's really happening is the way you want to think about it. People that are on, steroids, obviously it's going to give you more, hormones, more potential to make you aggressive. But the way that you should be thinking about it is, how is this person naturally? If this person's a natural fuckwit, well, then he's taken a ton of gear. He's just now a super fuckwit. That's what's happening. It's the person, not the gear. So like we can relate it to, all right, well, if this person has a lot of control, because you can see heaps of bodybuilders out there. A ton of them are like, you go to a gym, a good hardcore gym, they're calm as fuck. They're jacked as fuck and they're calm as fuck, right? So it's more so, how is this person? If this person is a good, strong, calm, accomplished person, the gear is just going to make him a super strong, calm, accomplished person. So it just enhances however you naturally are. That's, with all of that stuff. So yeah, it's definitely, high test is definitely not a bad thing. Any way you look at it, it's absolutely good. Obviously I'm talking about it from a natural standpoint, but if someone was to take a ton of PEDs, fair enough, maybe they'll lose control. But in general, it's more so just enhancing how you naturally are. So yeah.
It's an amplifier. It's like money.
Exactly.
It's like money. I mean, if you're a fuckwit when you don't have money, imagine when you do have money. You're gonna, like you said, you're gonna be an even bigger fuckwit. But if you got yourself under control and you're a good person, you're just gonna it's gonna amplify you. So definitely really there.
Well, that's an interesting point you guys bring up, because one of James Cameron's reasons for making this comment is that he's looking back at his life to when he was younger, and where he was very aggressive and rude to people on the movie sets and the studios, and he regrets some of that. And so his thinking is, I had too much testosterone back then, and that's why I was such an asshole. But what you're saying, Andrew, what you're saying, Andrew, is that maybe he had low testosterone back then, and that's why he was such a jerk.
So the way that you look at it is, the big strong alphas can handle power. The little male betas can't handle power. So if you're a beta and all of a sudden you get power, you're going to abuse that power. Now, that I would argue that's what's actually happening there. So arguably, and again, I don't know too much about James Cameron. I don't know about his history or whatever. Arguably, though, he could be a little beta that done very well in film, got a position of power, and then abused that power. So I would argue that's more likely what's actually happening, as opposed to him being high testosterone and being a dick about it. You know what I mean?
He's never looked like a guy who has high testosterone. Maybe not even average. Maybe not even average testosterone.
There you go. He's probably had low test his whole life, and now he's like, because he doesn't understand how it all works, or there's an agenda, whatever it may be, and he's just doesn't understand how it works. But again, it's not just my opinion. Like that chimp thing is a study, and there's multiple studies like that, not just one. So don't take my word for it. You can have a look at that.
What's also interesting, that Arnold is like, the embodiment of high test.
There you go.
He's known to be very calm and very friendly and very nice to work with on movie sets.
There you go. Well, we all know he's a bodybuilder, and we all know he was taking high amounts of testosterone. We don't know exactly what, but he was clearly super physiological ranges of testosterone. So that's definitely a very good counter argument. I don't know how anyone would say that any differently as well, because clearly he was big, he was jacked, he was calm, he was charismatic, he was on a ton of testosterone, or his testosterone levels would be very high.
But as you said before, he was that before the testosterone. If you read about his story, he started from nothing. He came to Hollywood. He had no credentials. I mean, to America, he had no credentials. He couldn't speak English. Had nothing going for him. And he said to himself, you know what? I'm going to make it big here. I'm going to become an actor. Guess what? He made it in acting. He wanted to buy real estate. He bought real estate. He's a self-made man. And that's like, just brings the point, as you mentioned before. You got to have it in you before you take the testosterone.
Yeah.
And as with what you were saying, Marcus, about James Cameron, when it was being an arsehole on set. I mean, one of the pros of high T is assertiveness. I mean, maybe you had to be a little bit too assertive. Sometimes you just got to say how it is, as high T men do. Maybe sometimes it can come across rude, but I mean, it's assertiveness is actually a good trait to have. But in this day and age where you can't be assertive, you can't speak your mind. So
Well, it worked. Well, that assertiveness worked well for him. I mean, whether it was testosterone or just his personality, that assertiveness definitely worked out well for him. And that
that's
was
another trait of a high T. Assertiveness, man. It's a big one.
now Arnold later on got into politics and he won governor of California, I think 2 or 3 times in a row. What's the link between testosterone and leadership?
By default, it's kind of like it's the same example. If we go back to that chimp example, right? The one that I was talking about, the alpha of the group, the one that's, you know, in charge, has the highest amount of testosterone. So by default, by extension, same thing with people. So when you're in a position of leadership, you're, you know, well, technically the way you look at it is like, if I'm in charge, I'm the alpha of this situation, which means, you know, I have high testosterone. It's just like a direct link to it. There's a reason why high testosterone men chase positions of leadership, or they just want to succeed. You know, it's the, if we look at it from extensions of the animal kingdom, it's the same thing in everything, right? If in the animal world, let's say a lion or a tiger or whatever, it's going to be the ones with the highest testosterone that tend to be the, you know, the biggest, baddest alpha motherfuckers, right? And you can look at that from a physical standpoint. You can look at that from, how do you say, like a mental sort of standpoint as well. Like if this lion just got defeated, his testosterone is lower, and, you know, in general, it's the biggest, baddest ones that have the highest testosterone. So it's like the same kind of thing with us. The high testosterone men are going to be competing to go, you know, to, how do we say, what's the, I'm trying to think of the word. When you're pushing for something, when you're pushing for I forget the fucking word, ambitious, like high testosterone men, there's like going to be a direct correlation with ambition as well. And in general, if you keep pushing hard enough, you're going to have that position of leadership. So yeah, I'd say there's direct correlation for it.
So if you're, let's say, a mid-manager in the corporate world and no one respects you, people don't listen to you, could it be possible that, you know, you need to work on your physicality and on your perhaps on your testosterone?
Yeah. Well, look, if you, like we were talking about before, if you improve your physicality, you normally improve your mentality as well. So if you, and the other thing is, it's just instant respect. Like, we can't help it. If some anorexic looking dude rocked up to his first day of work in a mid-management, you know, position, he's not going to get the same amount of respect as if I rocked up to that thing. You know what I mean? It's like, you can't help it. Like, if I'm the biggest, I'm not saying I'm huge, I'm just giving an example, but if I'm the biggest guy in the office, I get instant respect. You can't help that. You know what I mean? It's the same thing even for me. Like, if I was at work and, you know, I had a boss or whatever, and my boss was big and jacked, well, first of all, we're going to have shit to talk about. I'm like, oh, what do you do with the gym? Blah, blah, blah. But anyway, it's going to be like, oh shit, nice, bro. Fucking, it's just, you can't help it. There's instant level of respect. And, you know, whether that comes down to, you know, survival standpoint or whatever it may be, there's instant level of respect. But that's also going to correlate with testosterone. So that person at mid-level management that doesn't get respect, we could argue why. First of all, he could be a fuckwit. Secondly, it could be, you know, he could have gotten into that position and not know, you know, some people, it's like, you know, you get in there by who you know. So maybe he got in there with, you know, by who he knows. He doesn't know how to lead properly. Again, you put a low testosterone person into a position of power, and they're not going to know exactly what they're doing, and they're probably going to abuse that power. So yeah, the best way to do it, you improve your physicality, you normally improve your mentality. If you improve your physicality, you got less to prove, you know, just by extension. Like, you think about it, you got that anorexic person there and everyone hates him. He's like, how do you say, he's insecure. So you'd be insecure about it. Whereas if, like you said, you improve your physicality, by extension, you improve your mentality. You got nothing to prove. You're more relaxed, you're more chill, higher testosterone. So yeah, man, it's going to help just about every situation you can think of.
Well, I suppose it would also, you know, that was an example of a guy who's already in a position of leadership, but is not getting the respect of that position. But then there are guys who are not yet in a position of leadership. I would imagine that the guys with the highest testosterone usually make it to those positions of leadership because of the ambition, the drive, the motivation, the cognitive performance, the attention, the focus, all that good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're going to have the guts to make the big decisions too, man. A strong leader ain't going to make big decisions, man. Even sometimes, even if it means tough love for everybody else. So when shit's got to go down, you know, but they're the ones that are going to make the big calls, man. A high T, man. If you have low T, I mean, look at the leadership. Look at the leadership now around the world. Look at your Bidens and your Trudeaus and your Dan Andrews. You think these guys have one bit of fucking tea in them? Sorry, but yeah, they're not going to make the big calls. They're not going to have the confidence. The weak men now are destroying fucking civilization. So, yeah, absolute correlation there, Marcus.
It's by extension, like as well, exactly what you're saying, Mick. Like, for example, Dan Andrews. He's so out of shape. It doesn't look like he's ever lifted a weight in his life. Like, this is the same example that I gave before. It's like a beta male in a position of power. They abuse the power.
I was going off what you were saying. Absolutely. Weak men do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they've never had power in their whole life. All of a sudden they have it now. It's like they're scared they're going to lose it, first of all. But now they don't know how to handle it. So they're going to abuse it. The best possible leader that we could ask for would be a big, jacked, switch-on, high testosterone male. If he's been strong his whole life, why is he going to abuse power for? You got much less. If I've had power my whole life, what reason do I have to abuse this power? It's like, oh, cool, I got a bit more power. I know what I'm doing. I've dealt with this shit before. But we could use 100 different examples for all this. Let's say I've driven cars my whole life. I've driven fast cars my whole life. Put me in a Formula One car. I'm going to be more competent than someone that's never driven in their life, aren't I? Right? So it's the same kind of example. If we give someone that's never driven a fast car before, put him in a Formula One car, how much more likely is he to mess it up? Same sort of thing. You put someone in a position of power. Same example.
I like that metaphor. Well said.
Cheers.
Very interesting. Like it seems like testosterone is like critical for male happiness. And you look at, we talked about how testosterone levels have dropped over the decades. You look at men 50 years ago, they had no mental health issues.
Sure.
Whereas today we have a mental health crisis, a men's mental health crisis that everyone just acknowledges, but really nothing is being done about it. But if you look at guys 60 years ago, there was no such thing as male mental health.
Yeah. Well, everything was set up a lot better back then as well. Like we can argue the actual health effects, we can argue the gut health effects, but we've got to also look at the societal side of things as well. Now, let's use an example of the property prices. So back in the day, in the 50s, 60s, whatever, I, as the man, can go out and have a normal job, semi-normal job. I can buy a house on that job. I can provide for the family. The wife can stay at home, take care of the kids, blah, blah, blah. But in this day and age, that ratio of salary to property price is just fucking out of control. So the family unit is kind of destroyed because the wife has to go out and work as well. By extension, there's not that protect, provide thing given by the man. So that's kind of destroying the relationship between the man and the woman just by extension. So there's the societal side of things as well. For example, let's use the example, basically exactly what I just said. If I'm a man in the 50s, 60s, and I provide, protect for my family, I have fulfilled my role as a man much more. And that, by extension, the woman has to give me more respect. That's just how it is. And that's how it should be, right? Whereas in this day and age, your average man can't provide and protect for the woman because he needs help to do the loan repayment. So obviously there's going to be a dynamic shift in the relationship that way as well, because, before it's like, man fulfills his role, woman fulfills her role, they're separate, that's normal, it's all good, men and women are different, blah, blah, blah. But now it's kind of like in this day and age, they have to do similar things. So the man can't fully be in his role and the woman can't fully be in her role. So that's definitely going to affect the mental state of the man because he's not getting the respect that he should be getting in a relationship. So yeah, there's many different factors to take into account as to why that's happening. But then we've also got, we can look at, societal agendas and everything. And, it's, how can we say? The media props up like men and women should be equal and, women should be doing male roles. Well, how's that going to affect the state of mind of men? You know what I mean? So yeah, there's many, many different reasons why the male sort of mindset is messed
They want
up.
women to be men and men to be women, Andrew.
Exactly.
I'm sure you already knew that,
Exactly.
man.
Yeah. So it's clown world, bro. Clown world bullshit. Crazy.
Well, speaking of women, I mean, clearly testosterone is necessary for male happiness. It's necessary for male relationships, for fun, physical activity, sports, for winning in the workplace, taking risks, being assertive in the workplace, getting people's respect, etc. But then there's also women, right? The women are also a key part of a man's life. So I read a study where the t-shirt study, which you guys probably have heard of, where they took t-shirts of various men with different testosterone levels, and they had women basically smell them and judge the attractiveness of the male who was wearing the t-shirt based on the smell of the t-shirt. The t-shirts worn by the highest testosterone men were ranked the most attractive.
There you go.
Just by their scent.
Yeah.
Did you know, in general, if you got higher T, no matter where you are, women are drawn to you. Like, if you got high T, you can be able to walk in a room and not say anything, and just you'll have that respect. Just you got that masculine aura about you, and that's actually a fact.
Yeah.
So guys, man, get your T levels up.
Yeah, you walk around more confident as well. Like if you have high T, you're just more confident by extension. It's like it works both ways. Like you could have higher T, which makes you more confident, or if you gain your confidence, over time, it's going to give you higher T. So it sort of works both ways. But yeah, we could also look at the pheromone sort of side of things. Like why does it actually smell better? Like pretty much every other animal out there, there's pheromones. Like they use their pheromones to attract the other animal, right? The opposite sex. So it makes perfect sense as to why high testosterone will be ranked higher. It's just, how else were you supposed to know if someone's high testosterone back in the day? You know what I mean? That's one of the ways. They'll be bigger, they'll be stronger, they'll be more confident, they'll smell better. You know what I mean? It's probably arguably, like I haven't even really thought of it, but arguably it'll be every single scent would be different, right? I don't really know about the taste one, but I'm sure when you're kissing someone, it probably something's transferred through that as well. And they're like, oh, he's high test or whatever. We could use sight, or he's bigger. We could use sound, his voice sounds deeper. Touch is stronger, or whatever. So yeah, arguably in every possible aspect, it's going to be different for the high testosterone man compared to the low testosterone.
No doubt about it.
Very interesting. And then of course, when it comes to sexual performance, everybody knows that you can't perform without testosterone, right? Like you see a lot of these older guys, they struggle to perform in the bedroom with their women, and it's because their T levels have dropped, right? They take the TRT and then they're back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of the most important hormones for maintaining the sexual drive in men. Look, when in my younger days, when I got I had a bit of I went and got my levels checked, and they were on the lower side. This is when I was in my days of partying and not sleeping and eating shit. But anyway, that's for another topic. But I remember when my T levels were below 500, or about 4 something. And that's considered low. I reckon that borderline is 500. But anyways, I remember the days when I didn't have low T, and mate, I wasn't performing in the bedroom. I had no fucking drive. My sex drive definitely lacked. So yeah, there's definitely a correlation there.
Yeah. Because remember there's a relationship with dopamine and testosterone as well. So how can we say? So if you look at, all right, so let's look at survival standpoint, like metabolic adaptation. So what that basically means is your metabolism's adjusting to what you have available. So, if you're going through a period where there's low amounts of food, your body will lower the metabolism so you can live longer, right? So when your body does that, it gets rid of all non-essential parts of the system. So, for example, if I'm in a survival situation, I need to, conserve energy to live as long as possible. Procreating is not necessary for me to live. You know what I mean? It's like it's a secondary kind of thing when we think about it from that standpoint. So part of the things that lower when you have metabolic adaptation, one of the things that lowers is testosterone. So when you're in a survival situation, testosterone goes lower so that you can live. Survival situation in terms of food, right? If you got a low amount of food, so that lowers as well because your body doesn't want you procreating. So by extension, when you're in a good, healthy place, everything's ready to go for you to procreate. So if you're not healthy in one aspect or another aspect, or not getting enough food, you're not going to have those, the testosterone levels that you need to go out and procreate. So It's basically like, yeah, take care of yourself first, get everything nice and healthy, make sure everything's working properly, and then you'll be ready to sort of procreate.
Speaking of procreation, I mean, if let's say society and the powers that be implemented James Cameron's advice to save the world by eliminating testosterone and draining it out of every male, the species wouldn't reproduce. The human race would go extinct.
Exactly.
Depopulation, man.
Yeah.
Just the classic case of depopulation.
Yeah, it's just
fucking
such
crazy.
it's just such terrible advice for not only the health of men, but by correlation, the happiness of women. If men are miserable,
I was
women are
just
going to
about
be
to say that.
yeah.
Yeah, man. Because if you're not the man in the relationship, she's gonna have to force herself to be the man in the relationship, and then you're just gonna have that polarity clash. So,
Yeah.
Such bad advice. Miserable men, miserable women, and the extinction of the species. That's basically what he's advocating for.
how good.
Yeah. Crazy.
But guys, can we talk about how can guys protect their testosterone levels from some of the environmental factors that are reducing them in the modern world? Maybe we can start off with the basics, like water. We know that on tap water there are genics that make it into tap water through birth control pills, and that has an effect. So perhaps, Andrew, people should consider, if they are drinking tap water, to drink something else. Drink, still water, spring water, sparkling water, one of our favorites.
Yeah.
Filtered water.
Yeah. So there's many different things that you can do to help. So I know it's kind of been a lot of doom and gloom what we've been talking about. So yeah, let's get into some of the things that we can do to help. So first of all, very good point. The water is one thing. Tap water is definitely ideally a no-go. You can get bottled water would be a much better choice, or filtered water. But again, the filtered water, there's a lot of things in the water that don't get filtered out with a regular filter. So, ideally you want to get a high quality one. A reverse osmosis filter would be the best. That's like the top of the line, or it gets us rid of basically everything, including fluoride, which would be great. You can get a under the sink, or you can get a point of entry. Point of entry will be, so point of entry basically means every bit of water that goes into your house is going to be filtered. Or you can get, just under the kitchen sink. That'll be just on the, what do you call it? The tap thing that they put on there. So that'll be one way. The other way would be to get some good quality bottled water. Ideally, when you do that, you get glass bottled water. Plastic bottled is no good because all the plastics can leach into the water as well. Because basically, like if I got a crate full of plastic water outside, well, if that's sitting out in the sunlight for too long, all that plastic's going to heat up and leach into the water. So on that same point, don't store any food in plastic. Definitely don't heat up your food in plastic. Preferably use glass containers. So there's a few things there. Your water bottles, if let's say, for example, you've got a reverse osmosis filter and you're taking out your own water bottle, don't even get a BPA free, because there's other plastics besides BPA. So you would ideally have a stainless steel bottle or a glass bottle to put your other water in. On top of that, there's many other ways that estrogens can get into the system. One of the biggest ways and most unknown would be touching receipt paper. So a lot of people don't know about that. So receipt paper has the highest concentration of BPA out there. So like whenever someone gives you a receipt, if you don't have to grab that receipt, don't fucking grab it. Or like what I normally do, I grab it with my fingertips. I'm like, I grab it like that. I'm just fucking put it in my pocket straight away and try not to touch it. Just put it in a folder wherever I need it, and that's it. But yeah, you definitely don't want to be grabbing. I've got my flight ticket here. But you definitely don't want to be grabbing like a receipt paper like this and like, oh yeah, hold it. Oh, get rid of that shit, man. You don't want to hold that. All that BPA is just leaching out into your system. So yeah, you got estrogens from there. You've got soy. You want to avoid soy. Avoid having high body fat, because that's going to, by extension, have too much estrogen in the system. You want to avoid all your seed oils, your canola oil, safflower oil, corn oil, soybean oil, sunflower oil, all that kind of stuff. Your plastics, parabens, phthalates, PVC, avoid the porn that we were saying, avoid your pesticides. So the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is your cleaning products, your household cleaning products. So this is something that you should try and fix up as well. Now, there's a lot of things that I've said already. I haven't even scratched the surface, but your detergents, your soaps, your shampoos, you should be very wary of what you're getting here. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's too hard, it's too complicated. It's not. You just got to figure out what a good brand is, and then you're done, right? So it's very, very easy. So that's because, again, if I look on the back of this soap, And there's chemical this, chemical that, blah, 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 this, blah, 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 that. So why do all those chemicals need to be in there? You don't need all that shit, right? If you can get soap that has none of them. So if I can clean myself with the soap that has none of them, why do I need these chemicals for? And we could say the same thing about the foods that you eat as well. Why does this chemical need to be in my food? Like, it's such a simple question, but a lot of people don't stop to think about it. It's like, well, why do I need this chemical there? I don't need this chemical there. So why the fuck am I consuming it? What is it doing for me? No chemical is going to pretty much do you any benefit, right? For the most part, it's going to do you downside. So they're all the things you should avoid. In terms of what you should incorporate, so your zinc and magnesium, they're like the two most important minerals in the body, and they're very conducive to good testosterone. And most people are very deficient with both of these as well. And that's just, modern lifestyle has changed how we get a lot of our magnesium. Back in the day, we used to absorb a lot of magnesium through spring water, like when we're bathing or, in the beach, in the sea water. So you can absorb a lot of magnesium through the skin. Easiest way to get your zinc in is get some oysters or supplement. Magnesium these days, most people need a supplement with it to get a good amount. Ideally, you should incorporate some beef liver, get your sunlight, lift your weights, give your body a reason to want to be big and strong. Like we were talking about before, the accomplishment. Get your small wins, no matter how small they are. Just track your progress in whatever you're trying to progress in. If it's work, if you've got a business and you're trying to make money, track the amount of money you're making from week to week, from month to month. Because if you see that progress from month to month, you're gonna, get that positive feedback loop. The other thing would be higher protein intake. Most people are far too low on their protein intakes. You want to reduce your stress, as stress is counterproductive to high testosterone. So like your cortisol, there's an inverse relationship with cortisol and testosterone. You want to increase your fats. Fats are going to give you the fuel that you need to, produce your testosterone as well. Ideally saturated fat. You also want to have more cholesterol, which is very counterintuitive to most people. Most people are like, oh, saturated fat and cholesterol, that's bad for you. No, it's actually very good for you.
What does the metric say about saturated fats, Andrew?
You're gonna, I don't know.
This is another topic, but anyway.
Yeah, it's gonna plaque up your arteries and give you a heart attack and blah blah blah. It was like, well, why don't we address all the other facts why your arteries are fucked up? No exercise and sugar this and friggin' pastry that and all this other stuff. But yeah, the sleep, like you were mentioning, Mick. So yeah, all of those things are gonna help massively. Like if you incorporated everything that I said just there, your testosterone levels are probably going to double, if that, depending on how bad you were starting off. And then on top of all that, you want to be looking at your gut health, which I've sort of addressed this before, how the modern lifestyle is not conducive to good gut health whatsoever. So I want people to understand this. If you got everything right that I just talked about, great. That's a good start. That's a massive good start. But depending on the damage that's already been done, just because you got these right doesn't mean you're fixing damage. Right. So that's another thing. So yes, eliminate this, incorporate that, blah, blah, blah. But if damage is done, you also need to address that as well. Like if your gut structure is messed up, you need to kind of fix that up. If your gut microbiome is messed up, you've got to try to fix that up. If the bacterial balances are messed up, you've got to kind of address that as well. So yeah, there's a lot that can be done. I know it's a lot of doom and gloom, but it's very, very doable. Like again, let's use the soap and detergent thing. If you don't have the drive to say, oh, that one's bad for me, let me just grab this one and take this one home instead, well, then you don't deserve high testosterone. So it's a very simple solution, right? It's not always going to be easy. If people are eating sugars and cakes and, donuts and all of that, yeah, it's going to be hard to transition off of all that, but how bad do you want it? So yeah, hopefully that helps with a lot of people on what can be done. So yeah, there's definitely a way around it. It's not all doom and gloom. We can still fix up your testosterone, as bad as things are out there. You just got to, the first step to winning battle is being aware of what's going on, and then you can strategize.
Prerequisites all change, awareness. I've got nothing to add to that, Andrew. You've mentioned everything. You mentioned sunlight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a correlation between. Have you ever been in the sun? And your sex drive, when you get home, you're just through the roof for some reason.
Yeah,
could be the half naked door, but I definitely think it's the vitamin D, it's the sunlight. Yeah. Get as much sunlight as possible.
So there's a difference with vitamin D. So this is something else as well. When you just consume a tablet of vitamin D, it's not the same as when you absorb it through the sun, because what we absorb through the sun is more than just vitamin D. So we also get something, so it's called BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotropic factor, which helps us with, memory, how do you say, thought formation,
Focus,
all of that.
yeah.
Yeah, focus on all of that.
I've
And we
heard
get that from the sun as well. But when it comes to cholesterol, I don't remember the exact process of how it works off the top of my head. But as far as I could tell, the vitamin D that we absorb through the sun also helps with the conversion process of cholesterol into hormones, whereas the vitamin D in tablets doesn't. So yeah, there's definitely a difference there. So that's if this is the other thing, like with cholesterol. So I don't think I mentioned it. Cholesterol is a building block for our sex hormones. So if we don't have cholesterol, we can't make testosterone. So cholesterol is actually a good thing, right? But if you wanted someone to have low testosterone, you tell them not to consume cholesterol. So yeah, this is the other reason why the sunlight is so good. The sunlight is better than just having vitamin D. It's going to help you convert that cholesterol into hormones a lot more. So there you go. That's why you're feeling that drive in the sun, Mick, when you're out on the beach. I'm sure the half naked is helping too, though. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, but yeah, more so the sunlight, man. It's natural medicine. Just get in the sun. You'll feel so much better for it. That's why I moved to the beach. I had to be in the sun. I had to be in nature, salt water, earth, grass. It's just, you don't need much more to live a healthy lifestyle.
Well, Mick, you mentioned earlier that one of your clients had low T, mental health issues, etc., and he made some of these changes and it fixed them, like some of these protocols.
Absolutely. I mean, main factors was sleep. He was sleeping 8 hours a night, like he was sleeping like a lion. We incorporated a supplement called boron. Have you heard of boron, Andrew?
Yeah, bro. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good things to say about that.
Yeah, my morning erections were next level. But anyway, we'll talk about that next time. Yeah, supplemented with boron, got him sleeping better. We increased his saturated fats, supplemented with zinc, sunlight. We're managing his stress levels a lot. Just by doing that, within 3 months, we've done a bit of aerobic work as well. We sort of, got his mitochondria functioning because he was so stressed because he was a busy executive guy. So he was just so stressed. I got his body back in alignment. Did all those things, as Andrew mentioned, then we incorporated all of those, and within 3 months, I think his T levels got to 700 naturally. And this is a guy in his 40s.
That's pretty good.
We're considering TRT, but okay, you know what? Let's cover the basics first, as with everything, rather than getting pills and potions, just cover the basics. Cover the basics first. If they don't work, okay, go for your meds. But like I said, we covered the basics first, and it just played a massive role on his T levels and his just overall well-being.
Well, in that case, if he was below average, let's say he was around 350, and you said he reached 700, then as Andrew said earlier, that basically doubled his T just by implementing some of these actions.
Absolutely. Just like I said, hammer the basics. I'm sure you've heard this before back in the days, Andrew, when you with your client, just hammer the basics. Hammer the basics. Yeah. Sleep right, eat right, get some sunlight, manage your stress, incorporate some supplements. You're not going to have any problems getting to 700.
A lot of people, basically what you're just saying there, Mick, a lot of people these days major in the minors and minor in the majors. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard that before. And it's crazy. Like, we can relate this back to many, many different things. So let's use it in terms of health and fitness. Majoring in the minors is people like, oh, I got to take this supplement. Oh, I got to eat at particular this time. Oh, what type of protein should I take? Who gives a fuck, man? Get the other, like, you're worrying about the little things that have the least ROI. Why are you worried about them things for? You should be focused on the big bang for your buck items. Like, if we let's just look at nutrition, for example. We've got the nutritional hierarchy and blah, blah, blah. So, first off, the biggest thing to worry about is adherence, right? I don't care how good your fucking program is. I don't care if 15 guys with PhDs and the best fucking strength guys in the world made your fucking program. I couldn't care less. Can you stick to it? Or can you stick to that slightly easier program? Well, then that's probably going to be the better option. So if you've got some perfectly formulated program that you can't stick to, it's 6 days a week, double day training, cool, but you can't actually stick to it, so it doesn't really matter. Or you've got a 3 day a week program that's going to get you 60% of the results, but you're going to stick to it. Well, 60% of results is better than zero, right? So that's one thing. Second thing, if we look at that plan, so we go back to the nutritional hierarchy, you know, we've got calories, macronutrients, micronutrients, meal timing, and then we got supplements. If you just got calories and your macros right, and you got that through a majority of healthy foods, that's 95% of your nutritional results right there. So
100%.
if you ate all of that in one meal, so don't even worry about meal timing. Am I saying there's no return to meal timing? That's not what I'm saying. 100% there is. But if you can get 95% of your results by, you know, getting healthy food and getting the right amount of calories and the right macronutrients, why are you so obsessed by, I need to eat at this particular time, I need to have that particular protein shake, and I need to have this supplement and that? It's like you're worrying about 5%. Worry about the 95% first, then worry about the 5%. So yeah, and then again, people minor in the major. It's basically the same thing, right? Mick, you know all about this.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Look, for every new client, the first 30 days, no dairy, no gluten. Start with the basics. If you can't do the basics, how the fuck are you going to do the calorie counting and the macros and all that sort of stuff? It's like you said, protein, greens, healthy fats, some sort of carbs on your plate. Just start there. Just start there and you're going to win. Like you said, just start there. 95% of your battle's done.
Yep.
Just by simply just incorporating just some basic stuff.
Yeah. And real quickly, so touching on how we were talking about, it might be hard for a lot of people to do all of these things at once. So you don't have to. You start small.
No.
It's like a lot of people
Absolutely.
hearing all the things that I just said, like get rid of this, get rid of that. Like people will be like, what the f, I can't do all that. Don't.
Overwhelming.
Pick one or two. Like one of my favorite methods to do with my clients, I call it like a 10 out of 10 method. Whatever change you want to do, ask yourself 10 out of 10, how likely are you to be able to stick to it? If the answer is anything less than 10, make it easier. And then you can progress your way up to doing what I'm saying. So like once the habits are cemented, ask yourself again the next week, can I 10 out of 10 make this next change? No, stick to what you're doing for another week. Wait until you've sort of ingrained it into the point where it's like, this is easy, let me change something else now. But everyone wants the instant fix, bang, it's over with, done. Well, that's why you're going to fail, because you're doing too much at once and you're not going to be able to stick to it. So slow progress is progress, and it's better than no progress.
Awesome. And Andrew, earlier you touched on, eliminating plastics, your ingestion of plastic. I recently saw an article that said that the average person, the average man today ingests, I think, the equivalent of a credit card per day or per week. Yeah, it's crazy. But just for those that don't know, what can you just explain to the listeners, what does plastic do to impact testosterone? Just so that they know the reason.
So it acts as like a foreign estrogen, right? Like a xenoestrogen. So our bodies recognize certain plastics as estrogen in the system. And if your body's recognizing that estrogen, it's taking up those receptors, and it's basically responding the same way. So same sort of thing as if you're too obese and you have too much fat, which means you have too much estrogen. So it's kind of like, well, if you have too much estrogen, it's going to lower your testosterone. So same thing, if you're consuming all this estrogen, it's going to lower your testosterone. Real interesting side note on this, for anyone that's interested, I'm pretty sure the documentary is on YouTube. It's called The Disappearing Male. Now, I don't remember the name of the town that they did this experiment in, but there was a town in America. Normally, the birth rate between male and female is roughly 50-50, right? It's roughly that. In this particular town in America, the birth rate was 90% female, which is an extreme difference, right? It wasn't like it was 55-45. It was like, bang, all female, like barely any male. And, they went over all these different things. They were testing all these men, blah, blah, blah. But then the factor that they found, which was causing this, was this particular town in America had multiple plastic producing factories. Like, those factories where like they got the steam up in the air, like all the shit's going out. There was those type of factories, and they were all plastic producing factories. And there's all these houses around these factories. And basically, by extension, all these plastics going into the air, all these men are breathing in this plastic, the birth rate went to 90% female, which is batshit insane. So we can't deny the effect that that's having on hormonal levels as well. So this is why what I'm trying to say before is there's many different factors you need to take into account. It's not just your diet, there's the mental factor. There's also the environmental factor, like I just said. Like another one would be if you live right next door or very close by to a petrol station. That's not good for your health either, because you're breathing in those fumes day to day. So There's many different things that you need to take into account in this day and age to optimize your health in all areas. But the first step, like I said, is being aware. You know, being aware is half the battle. So yeah, many things to take into account. Like I said, you know, where are you living? What's close by to you? You know, maybe there's not a petrol station. Maybe there's not a plastic factory. Maybe there's a paint shop. Well, that's not going to be good if you're breathing that in all day either. So yeah, definitely a lot of things to take into account, but it can be overwhelming. Like I know I'm talking about a lot of things, but step by step, you know, just be aware to start with and do whatever you can and make those adjustments as needed.
One adjustment I made recently is I stopped drinking out of plastic water bottles.
Awesome.
And tap water as well. So the phytoestrogens from the plastic's gone, and the estrogen from the birth control pills in the tap water is gone.
Good. That's a big first step, man. It's a very big one.
It's hard to find water bottles with glass, by the way, but I did manage to get some off Amazon.
Yeah. It depends where you go too. Like certain supermarkets are going to have them, or you know, Amazon's a good one as well. There's certain services that, you know, that's basically what they do. Like they deliver glass bottles, they can do recycling. So, you know, you leave the glass bottles, give it to them again, they'll take it back, blah, blah, blah. So there's definitely a way around it, man. Like I said, there's a way around all of these issues. It's just, first of all, how bad do you want it? You know, how much do you want to make it work? But yeah, the first step I would say is elimination. That's the first thing. You know, get rid of all the bad shit before you start incorporating. And that's one big thing. So you're eliminating the bad influx of, you know, all the chemicals that could be in that water. You start getting rid of, you know, the seed oils as well. That's another good one. You know, don't store your food in the plastic containers, store them in glass. And yeah, all the other ones that we had on that list. So yeah, man, keep doing it. That's your first step. So exactly like I was saying, you started with one. What can I do next? I'm used to this. Let's do something else. That's the best way to do it, man.
I think if you just, you know, if guys are getting too overwhelmed, I'd say just, if you can just get your sleep right, increase saturated fats, get some sunlight, and supplement with zinc. Just those four alone,
Big
you're
difference.
going to notice a difference. There's no doubt about it. Just those four alone. I'd say sleep is the biggest one.
Yeah.
If you can just those four, you're going to win.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, let's get the audience your IG handles at the end, just so that if they want some advice on these protocols, they can reach out to you guys and get some of that advice. Andrew, that protocol sounds very comprehensive. I think you should write like an ebook or something on that, the comprehensive guide to naturally boosting your testosterone, because you have a unique perspective in that you're also not only do you need to take in boron and take in zinc, but also, you know, the water bottle thing. That's something that most people don't know about. Another one that you mentioned to me a little while ago was the underwear.
Oh yeah.
Spandex,
Let's talk about that.
the spandex
Yeah.
underwear. So
I completely
why?
forgot about that.
So spandex underwear versus cotton underwear. So what's the problem with spandex underwear?
So it's polyester. So
yeah,
this is another thing, another factor to take into account, like the clothes we wear, right? They have an impact on, you know, we absorb things through our skin. Like I said earlier about the magnesium, we can absorb magnesium through our skin. And it's the same thing if you put on, you know, materials that aren't good for us, it's going to have an effect on us as well. So there was this study I was looking at, which was very, very, very interesting. And basically what they did was they were comparing men that were wearing polyester underwear compared to men that weren't. And the men that were wearing polyester underwear, I don't remember the numbers. No, sorry, actually, I do remember the numbers off the top of my head. 100% effective as male birth control. 100%. That's how bad polyester underwear is for you. So if you got those polyester underwear, get them out of the house. There's many different options that you can use. You know, get cotton underwear, bamboo underwear. That's basically what I use. Yeah, so like polyester clothing in general, you shouldn't be wearing it. Get rid of it. You know, replace it with whatever you can. But the most dangerous is obviously going to be the underwear, because you know they're right on your balls. So you know you got to protect your boys. Wrap them in some nice cotton or some bamboo and take care of them.
That's where it's produced, man, in the balls.
Yep. That's it.
The testosterone.
When you told me that, I thought you were joking, but then I looked up the
No.
study, and there's multiple scientific studies where I think in some cases it acted as a contraceptive.
Yeah, 100% effective.
Yeah.
Male birth control. It's crazy. Absolutely
Wow,
crazy.
I actually did not know that, Andrew.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, no, even
Wow.
reduced, I'm pretty sure it reduced testicular volume by 50% as well. So it's very, very bad. And again, that's an easy one most people can do. Just change your underwear, buy some other ones.
I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to check my drawers. See what I've got in there.
Crazy stuff, man.
There's so much you can do to fight against this epidemic of low T. And you know, nowadays we got some of the younger guys taking TRT at like age 25 when their test is peaking, which is crazy. Right? Like
Are they taking TRT, or they just want to take steroids just to get bigger and take the easy way out, or is it actual TRT?
I don't
I think
know.
I think most 25-year-olds now will just be taking it just summertime, look good, get some high tea. Winter, eat shit, do nothing, be sloppy, be lazy. Summer comes again, and the cycle repeats. That's just most 25-year-olds these days. But I mean, maybe they would be doing TRT if you want to, elaborate on that a bit more.
There are certainly a lot more younger guys in their 30s that are doing TRT, like going to actual TRT clinics.
So bad.
I mean, your T peaks in your late teens, early 20s. Is that right, Andrew? And then just, I think, anywhere between when you hit 30, that's when it starts to decline.
Pretty much.
But obviously, I mean, you can control that with lifestyle. You can control that with lifestyle factors, obviously, with all the stuff that you mentioned before. So.
Well, I mean, typically when you take TRT or steroids, you typically double your T levels, right? So, but as you guys just outlined, there's there's changes you can make that can naturally get you that same effect. So perhaps for some of the guys listening, if you're considering taking steroids, try some of these natural methods first. And yeah, so I think, guys, we'll wrap it up there, because I think Andrew and Mick, you guys give some actionable, we did our reaction to James Cameron's idiotic comment, but we also gave the audience some action items and some very counterintuitive advice that most people don't know about, like the underwear thing and the plastic water bottle thing. But if guys want to reach out to you for more, we'll be sure to link your IGs and your contact details. But in closing, basically, for anybody who is a fan of James Cameron and, and Hollywood and listens to everything these celebrities say, be careful here. This is horrible advice, very bad health advice, in fact. And yeah, that's my final word on it. Andrew, final thoughts?
Be aware of what can be doing the damage to everything, and take steps to minimize. Like, you could start with the easiest things first. Like I was saying, your soaps and detergents, it's pretty easy to change that. Pretty easy to change your underwear. Pretty easy to store your food in a glass container, drink out of glass or stainless steel bottles. Pretty easy to change the water that you drink. You buy in plastic, buy a glass bottle one. So yeah, just pick the biggest ROI items that aren't going to cause too much hassle and too much, mental strain on you for doing all of these things. And yeah, step by step, you'll progress towards high tests. So yeah, eliminate all the bad things, start incorporating good things, and you'll be on your way to good health. And like Mick was saying as well, fix up your sleep and supplement with some of the good stuff. But again, step by step, don't overwhelm yourself.
Make final thoughts?
I'd say, like I said, if you can manage your stress and get your sleep right, and there's actually a supplement called boron, which contains all the good ingredients: magnesium, zinc, fenugreek, vitamin B6, and it's got a very high anti-inflammatory content as well. And obviously, those ingredients that I mentioned there, they are good for cutting body fat, building muscle mass, and strength. So, if you want to take a supplement, try boron out. That's a good natural supplement to take, rather than going on the TRT, rather than sticking a needle in your ass.
Yeah, that's pretty lame. All right. Well, thanks so much, guys, for all the insights. Andrew, I really think you should write that ebook at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, in closing, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one. And until next time, take care, everybody.